Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we are going to completely transform useless, vague anxieties into highly actionable data to protect your operations. I mean, if you've ever stared at a risk register and felt like it was just this massive, depressing list of bad things that might happen with absolutely no clear path forward, you are exactly in the right place. Because here's the reality. Identifying a risk is totally useless if you can't communicate it clearly to your stakeholders and executives. So we're going to arm you with the ultimate diagnostic tool today. We'll be using structured sentences that turn those vague worries into concrete, measurable action. So we're going to fix that broken risk register of yours by teaching you 2 airtight frameworks to rewrite your risks, and then we'll show you how to actually classify those threats. Our agenda is super straightforward. First, we'll look at the cost of bad statements. Second, the cause, risk event, and consequence framework. Third, the if-then syntax. Fourth, classifying the disruption. And finally, number 5, the final assessment bridge. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the cost of bad statements. This is all about translating that vague anxiety. Okay, let's dive right in by exposing the absolute danger of poorly written, useless risk statements. Putting a phrase like supplier failure on a risk register pretty much guarantees a stalled process. Just think about it for a second. If a manager hands you a report that just says supplier failure, what on earth do you do with that? Which supplier? What kind of failure are we even talking about here? Because without a specific cause, your engineers literally cannot design a preventative control. And without a measurable consequence, there is absolutely no way your finance department is going to approve a mitigation budget, right? These vague statements just lead to totally wasted meetings, a really dangerous false sense of security, and ultimately the complete failure of your entire risk management process. Moving on to Section 2, cause, risk event, and consequence. This is our makeover format A. Let's see how this builds a structured sentence using 3 really distinct components. So the very first component is the cause. This is the existing condition or a decision that creates your exposure. Now, what's incredibly crucial here, and you can't miss this, is that a cause must be fact-based. It is already true right now. Students and seasoned pros alike constantly mess this up by writing down a future possibility here, rather than just naming the most actionable existing root trigger. You have to actually name the condition, where stepping in and doing something would prevent the whole problem from happening in the first place. Next up, we have the risk event. Now, the risk event is the pure variable in this equation. It's the uncertain trigger that might or might not actually happen because of that vulnerability you just named in the cause. This is the big, looming what if hanging right over your operations. And the third, final component is the consequence. This is the specific, highly measurable impact on your supply chain objectives if that risk event actually goes down. You've got to quantify the impact in time, cost, or quality. And honestly, if you can't put a solid number on it, like if that data literally doesn't exist yet, well, identifying that massive data gap is an operational risk management problem in itself that you need to go solve ASAP. This simple example brilliantly illustrates the difference between these elements in totally everyday terms. Take a look. I drive on icy roads every winter. Okay, that is an existing fact. It's a condition. That's your cause. But I might skid into a ditch is the uncertain event. That's the risk event. And obviously, if you do skid into that ditch, the consequence is that you miss 2 days of work, right? Which is a highly measurable, painful impact. Let's look at how these micro-stories unfold in a real-world supply chain context. In sourcing, your cause is relying on a single Taiwan microchip supplier. That's a current known fact. The risk event is a geopolitical conflict, suddenly halting your shipments. The consequence? Well, you can't assemble your flagship product, leading to a projected 25% drop in quarterly revenue. Bam, clear as day. Now contrast that with transport. An existing vulnerability, like using a standard winter Rocky Mountain route, leads to the uncertain event of an avalanche closing the highway for 48 hours. This creates a highly measurable consequence, a 3-day lead time increase resulting in retail stockouts and a $50,000 loss in sales. Just notice how infinitely more actionable this becomes compared to lazily writing down transport delay. Okay, Section 3, the if-then syntax. This is our makeover format B. Let's look at a totally different but equally valid alternative recommended by the U.S. Department of Defense. This framework is super popular across the industry. And the crucial point here is speed and standardized clarity. It literally boils everything down to 2 incredibly fast parts. The if captures the uncertain risk event or trigger condition. And the then captures the exact, direct, measurable consequence on your actual business operations. Let's see this bad boy in action. If our Tier 2 resin supplier experiences a toxic spill and is shut down by regulators, then our Tier 1 packaging supplier halts deliveries in 2 weeks, completely stopping our final assembly. When you read it together, it creates this crystal clear chain of cause and effect that anybody from the warehouse to the C-suite can understand instantly. Now, of course, every framework is going to have its trade-offs, right? While standardized formats eliminate ambiguity across the board and allow for really objective prioritization, they definitely have limitations. Writing them well is pretty time-consuming. You actually have to hunt down the financial data or specific contract terms to quantify your consequence, which might force you to rely on some slightly inaccurate estimates at first. But listen, that temporary discomfort is miles better than permanent ambiguity. All right, Section 4, classifying the disruption, event versus variability. Because once you actually have these clear statements, you have to categorize them so you don't end up wasting tons of capital on the wrong mitigation strategy. First thing you need to do is ask about the physical nature of the disruption. Is it an event risk, meaning a discrete, singular, totally binary incident? It either happens or doesn't. Think of a factory fire or a massive cyber attack. You mitigate these guys by building redundancy or, buying insurance. Or, on the flip side, is it a variability risk? This is that continuous day-to-day variance, the natural statistical wiggles in any complex process, like daily traffic congestion or minor commodity price shifts. You mitigate variability by building in buffers. We're talking safety stock or slack time in your schedules. Because trying to buy an insurance policy for daily traffic delays, that is a complete waste of capital.
Next, we need to look at predictability. Is it a known unknown? Basically, this means managers don't know the exact Tuesday the event will happen, but they do have enough historical data to assign it a mathematical probability. Like, a retailer knows theft happens at roughly a 1.5% rate annually, so they can just budget for it. Pretty simple. But is it an unknown unknown? This is an event that is completely outside historical modeling. Think of a catastrophic structural warehouse floor collapse. You can't just calculate a neat little probability here. Your only real defense is broad organizational resilience and agility.
So let's map these concepts together. This classification matrix is what guides your resource allocation way before you even pick a response strategy. A known variability risk? That might just be minor picking errors managed with routine quality checks. An unknown event risk? Well, that might be an Icelandic volcanic eruption that grounds literally all air freight, which requires some seriously heavy business continuity planning. But keep in mind, the boundaries here can be kind of subjective. What is an unknown unknown to a rookie analyst might actually be a known unknown to a veteran manager who's seen it all. And just between you and me, categorizing a severe risk as an unknown unknown is highly subjective and sometimes used as a sneaky management excuse to just avoid taking responsibility for poor planning. Okay, we've made it to Section 5, the final assessment bridge. This is where we put all those numbers to work. Let's see how all this hard effort bridges straight into strategic action. Honestly, everything we've covered today has been leading right up to this exact moment. When you define and state your risk using the frameworks we just talked about, a well-written risk statement essentially hands you two crucial numbers on a silver platter: your estimated probability and your estimated impact. You extract those two numbers and then you multiply them together. Doing this calculates your risk priority number, or your RPN. And this is exactly what allows you to objectively assess and rank all your risks by their true severity, so you know exactly which threats demand your immediate resources. You have successfully translated vague, useless anxiety into crystal clear data. You've got your severity rankings, so the only question left for your supply chain is this: based on its severity, which of these 4 strategies are you going to choose to execute? Are you going to mitigate the risk, transfer it away using insurance, completely avoid it, or just retain it and swallow the cost? That is the strategic choice you are now totally empowered to make. So I want you to take a long, hard look at your own risk register today. Are you actually preparing your organization for the future, or are you just documenting a list of vague anxieties?